Shalom. Shalom, giving all praises, glory, and honors unto Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, by Hashem Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles, early bishops of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the 144,000 rest of the hopeful elect out there, brothers and sisters out there. Shalom. This is your brother, the priest Zawan from GMS Atlanta, back with another edifying video. And this here is I was watching the Apostle Hard's video, his lesson, as you can see here, 5 cities in the land of Egypt will speak the language of Canaan. And they put this video up yesterday. And he was speaking about when you go into Isaiah the 19th chapter, it speaks about the different cities in Egypt will speak the language of Canaan. And when you look it up and you research it, as you can see here, the Canaanite language, or the language of Canaan of ancient times, was the Hebrew. Okay, what we call the Paleo-Hebrew. They also call it the Proto-Hebrew or the Phoenician. And it says here, the language of Canaan. And this is I just paused the video from Pastor Hars. What is the 666 Mark II GMS True? Subscribe to the apostle to be edified. And it says here, he pulled it up on his screen. It says the language of Canaan, also referred to as Hebrew in some contexts, which it is Hebrew, was a group of closely related Northwest Shemitic languages, Semitic, which goes back to Shem, the son of Noah, spoken in the Levant region, which is also known as the Fertile Crescent. Okay, between from the Euphrates River in the east, westward, over to the land of Israel, Palestine. And it says here, related Northwest, this is closely related Northwest Semitic languages spoken in the Levant region during the Bronze and Iron Ages. It's not a single language, but rather a family of closely related dialects, including Phoenician, Moabite, and Hebrew, which the spoken languages, pursuant to the book of Genesis, you can read the history. The languages were scattered and confounded at the Tower of Babel, so you had different dialects, but they all go back, all those dialects go back to the Hebrew. But the different people, they spoke different dialects of that language. Okay, it says including the Phoenician, Moabite, and Hebrew. Hebrew is the only Canaanite language that survives as a living language today, though it was revived as a spoken language in the late 19th and 20th century. So you will have the 18 and the 1900s, 1800s, 1900s. That's when you saw people speaking, not necessarily reading, but actually speaking some of the Hebrew language. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to let Apostle Hart speak on this video, and then he's going to make a point, and I'm gonna go into some history. Okay, so listen up.
Who is the father of modern day Hebrew? Let's see what comes up. Let me put in the who. The who. Who is the founder of modern day Hebrew? Eleazar Bunya Yehudi. No, you said it's Yitzhak Perlman. Okay. born Eleazar Yitzhak Perlman. He's a Russian Jew. Now, he could be a Jake. He could be a Jake. Eleazar ben Yehuda, or for Yehuda, he wrote you got this dictionary we used to use called the Hebrew, English, Hebrew dictionary, the Ben Yehuda. Say, yo, give me the Ben Yehudi, or the Ben Yehuda. Is widely considered the founder of the modern Hebrew. He was a Lithuanian Jewish linguist. He studied languages, right? Not just the Hebrew. And lexicographer who spearheaded the revival of Hebrew as a spoken language. Why? Because those Europeans that they had to create the state of Israel, they wasn't speaking Israel. So in his household, he made statements. He said that the Arabs, the language that they speak, the Arabic, he said that's real Hebrew. Then he said, I borrowed a lot of Arabic words for the modern Hebrew. But he did say that if you go back 5 years of Google, it tell you that it's hard to find now. But he did make a statement that good luck in trying to find it. May the Most High be with you. And you may be able to find it. But he said that the real Hebrew, the Arabic wrote, and he kind of gave it a little different, kind of tweaked it, you know? Now, in his household, he spoke English. I guess he spoke German. I don't know. His household language, he was Lithuanian. So I guess he's speaking German, maybe some English. This was in the 1920s.
Okay, so you heard it. You know, Apostle Har mentioned about this guy, Eleazar ben Yehuda. With most Hebrew Israelites should be familiar with the dictionary that he wrote. As Apostle Har mentioned, the Hebrew English Hebrew dictionary with the gold cover, which they were using that dictionary even back in the days of the old school at One West. And then once we started to learn who we are from the apostles, I say for myself, from the apostles and elder bishops here at Great Millstone, they told us about the book. So that's how we get into the Hebrew, along with the different online Bible dictionaries and things like that. Like you got the Blue Letter Bible, which all Israelites, a lot of the camps, they go to the Blue Letter Bible to study, which that came from the Apostle Har through the Spirit. And so we get a better understanding of our language. Now, he made a statement, because see, when I watch these videos, I study. You know, I look things up. I'll get articles. I'll search, find, and you know, if they make a statement that I need to look up, then I'm gonna look it up and I'm gonna research it. You know, you got to be like the spirit. You got to have the spirit of the Israelites, of the believers of the Church of Berea. You know, whatever was said, search the scriptures and you search different pieces of information to see whether or not what is spoken is true. So he mentioned about Ben Yehuda getting, or Yitzhak Perlman. He mentioned about him getting a lot of words from the Arabic language, which he moved over to the Hebrew as he was reviving the spoken Hebrew language. He took a lot of words from the Arabic, and he said it was hard to find, or I guess when you look it up, at one point it didn't come up. When he searched it, so what I did was I searched it up. I looked it up. You know, I wanted to get that point, because that's a good that's a good piece of information because it 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 tells you that these people that's in the land of Israel today, that's bombing the hell out of Gaza and the Iranians over there, that they had to create that identity, you know. But it's true. It's true. The Arabic is another dialect of the Hebrew because those people, the so-called Arabs, they are of the sons of Ishmael. Okay, the Ishmael, which the word Arab means mixed. Arab means mixed, which you also have the 6 sons of Keturah, which those sons were also the sons of Abraham, but they didn't come from the chosen line. The chosen line of Abraham goes through Isaac, and then Isaac had 2 sons, which is Esau, and he also had Jacob, which was the younger son, Esau being the oldest, but the promise and the line of the promise went from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob, which you have the Israelites come from Jacob. All right, but they all spoke Hebrew. Esau spoke Hebrew. The Arabs, Ishmael spoke Hebrew. You also had their cousins, the Moabites, the Ammonites. They spoke Hebrew. And then you have, of course, the Israelites spoke Hebrew. Okay, but the Arabics, they speak a language which is a dialect of Hebrew. I mean, of course, it's changed over time, but that would be the closest language going back to the Middle East, because Moab and Ammon aren't in the Middle East like that anymore. They've been moved far east into Asia. So those languages that they speak in the Middle East today, the Arabic language, is the closest to the ancient Hebrew. Okay? And so what I did was I looked this up. And let me see here. And this is what I found. Okay. So what I have, so this is from Bartleby.com. Okay. And it says, Eleazar ben Yehuda is turning in his grave over Israel's humiliation of Arabic. So I'm guessing this is from a school paper. It says Wayne State University. We are endorsed by this school, so there's a disclaimer. So this is from October 2023, and so this is like from a web page here. So this is what I'm gonna read from this web page. This is actually from Haaretz, which is the land. Haaretz means the land in the Hebrew. Okay, Haaretz. So this is from the actual Israel website. So let's read this. It says, Eleazar ben Yehuda is turning in his grave over Israel's humiliation of Arabic. The humanist reviver of modern Hebrew, who explicitly sought help from her sister Arabic. Okay, so who was the reviver of modern Hebrew? Eleazar ben Yehuda, or Eliezer Yitzhak Perlman. All right. It says, who explicitly sought help from her sister Arabic, would not recognize the idea the 2 languages are each other's nemesis, as Israel's nation-state bill seems to imagine. So let's just read this. So basically, this is, I guess, some people in Israel were speaking against the Arabic, because this is from 2017. So this is an article from 2017 that I guess someone reposted in a school paper. But this is an actual article. May 15, 2017. and it says that they're coming against the Arabic language over there, which makes sense since they're bombing. Since 2023, they've been at war with Hamas and the Houthi rebels, and now Iran, and they've been bombing Gaza over there in that region. So there's a back and forth between the Arabics in that land and the state of Israel today. So it says, when the Israeli Cabinet Committee approved the so-called nation-state bill, which revokes the status of Arabic as an official language. Okay, I didn't know that. It marked an ironic departure from the legacy of Israel's founders, founders. I'll say it like that. And there's some redacted language here, but somebody kept the writing in or put the writing in. So let me just read this. So it says, when one prominent pioneer was Eliezer ben Yehuda, the famed Jewish lexicographer, widely hailed as the reviver of modern Hebrew, and whose revivalist legacy rested on a genuine recognition of the essential role of Arabic in the rebirth and resurrection of modern Hebrew. Which the Hebrew that they speak is a mixture of languages. They were speaking Yiddish, which is a mix of German, certain Hebrew terms, and then you have the Arabic along with German, and then they borrowed words. This guy Ben Yehuda borrowed words from different places, and now they speak as far as speaking the language, and that's the modern Hebrew. But what we have here amongst the Hebrew Israelites, the ones that come out of One West, and that's here, G and Mass Great Millstone, we believe we have the true Hebrew, the what we call the Lashawan Kodash, or the pure tongue, what they would call the Loshen Kodesh. We have the true pronunciation of not just the Hebrew, but also the names of the Heavenly Father and the Son. Okay? What Bishop Nate once called Hebrew Ebonics. And then you got this Christian apologist, Vocab Malone, says that the high priest Ariah at that time just made it up. You know, but that's okay. You don't have to believe. We believe it is. You know, his belief don't make our faith untrue, you know? Pursuing the Romans, the 3rd chapter. It don't matter if you don't believe. Okay? Doesn't matter if Bishop Nathaniel doesn't believe. He calls it Ebonics, Hebrew.
90.
But we believe in that language. But anyway, the modern Hebrew was revived by Ben Yehuda. And let's read this. So it says, when Ben Yehuda arrived in Palestine in 1881, Hebrew had not been a spoken language among local Jews since the time of the Bible. And also in the 1800s, this is also when you had the banking families, the Rothschilds and so forth. This was when they began to start to want to take the land of Israel back, so-called, you know, or take it from the Arabs over there, because the Arabs had been in that land since the Israelites, so-called blacks, right, the southern kingdom, Judah, was kicked out of the land and had to leave from the invasion of the Romans, from the siege of the Romans back in 70 AD, all right, and they were taken, some into captivity, some fled, but the true people weren't in that land, and the Arabs had lived in that land up until the 19th century. So it says, when Ben Yehuda arrived in Palestine in 1881, Hebrew had not been a spoken language among local Jews since the time of the Bible. Instead, the Jews in Ottoman Palestine, which Ottoman goes back to the Ottoman Empire, which, oh yeah, that's right. So the Ottoman Empire came, and they were in control of that land. So you had, which it was the Edomites that were in control of the Ottoman Empire, and so you had the Arabs and the Ottomans mixed in that land. Okay? But there wasn't an established Hebrew at that time. So it says, instead, the Jews in the Ottoman Palestine spoke a mishmash of languages. Sephardim spoke Ladino and Arabic. Ashkenazim spoke Yiddish, while the rest conversed in several secular pidgin languages that evolved in various quarters. And pidgin is like it's like a broken form of a language. Like pidgin, a lot of Creole people in the America speak a pidgin. Down south here, they speak pidgin, which is like a broken form of English. In the islands, they call it patois, which is also a broken form of English, and it's like another dialect of English. A broken form of a language, pretty much. Broken words, okay? Because they didn't have the real Hebrew, so they was speaking it brokenly, and with Arabic mixed in. So it says in Jerusalem, for example, the Jews spoke Yiddish, French, or Arabic vernacular. So they spoke French as well. To Ben Yehuda, none of these dialects or lingua francas qualified as a mother tongue, let alone national language for the Jews in Palestine. Right, because to be honest, if those people over there were going to try to claim the land and say that they were the real people that belonged in that land, they would have to have the Hebrew language established. So that's what this guy was set up to do. He was set up to revive the language. So it says, Ben Yehuda was a cultural nationalist who perceived the birth of J-ish nationalism and the revival of the Hebrew language. To accomplish his nationalist vision, he sought to transform Hebrew, which for centuries had been all but dead, into a modern spoken language. And reimagining the Jews as a modern nation, Ben Yehuda also aspired to create a nation where the Jews could adopt Hebrew as a national language. Like I said, that's what he was set up to do. The Hebrew language can live only if we revive the nation and return it to the fatherland, he wrote. So that's what he endeavored to do. Now, when you go, okay, now when you go into the scriptures, okay, let's go to, I believe it's Luke 21. The prophecy says that the Gentiles, which these are the natural Gentiles, the heathens, they were going to be in that land. Okay, hold on one second. Let me get this right, red letter, because these are the words of Yahushua. So this is Luke chapter 21. Here we go. And 24. 23. It says, but woe unto them that are with child. Now this is going into when the Judites, so-called African Americans, West Indians, Haitians, were still in the land under the true nationality, being Israel, being Judah. Okay, they were in the land, but it was prophesied by Yahushua that they were going to be besieged. Eventually, they did by the Romans, and they were ran out of the land. They were kicked out of the land. Okay, it says, but woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. What days? When the Romans came into Jerusalem and besieged it. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And that's what happened, and that was the wrath of the Lord. Okay, the Lord was angry with Israel. They didn't listen to his son. So it was prophesied that the Israelites, the southern kingdom this time, was going to be ran out of Jerusalem, and the previous 10 tribes, the 10 tribes in the northern kingdom, were kicked out of the land by the Assyrians. And you can look into that history in the Chronicles. It says, "And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations." So this is another scripture that you can prove right here to show you that the Israelites are the African Americans today that came on slave ships from West Africa, because we had to flee out of the land first, then we had to be led captive into all nations. And that happened during the transatlantic slave trade, which brothers are, the apostles, different brothers are going into that topic. Deuteronomy 28:68, how the slave trade did indeed happen, and those people that came on slave ships were Israelites. Okay, now here's the point. It says, "And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled." So the Israelites were kicked out of the land, and the Gentiles would be in that land until that time was up. So what you have in the land today is the Gentiles in the land of Israel. Okay, because check this out. Let's go to Isaiah, the 2nd chapter. When the Israelites were to return back to that land of Jerusalem, in the land of Israel, then there will be no more war. Okay, Isaiah 2:2. "And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow into it." So all the nations will flow into the land of Israel, but they're not doing that now. They're fleeing away. They're scared because of the war that's happening. "And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the power of Jacob." Nobody's saying let's go to the land of Israel in 2025 and learn of the Jews over there. "And he would teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths." Nobody is doing that. So what's going on in that land is not the fulfillment of this prophecy. So it would have to be a fulfillment of what I read in Luke 21 about the Gentiles in that land. "For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." Well, nobody's into the Bible going into the laws all over the planet Earth, which is coming out of the land of Israel. Okay? It says that he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares. When you beat a sword into a plowshare, you're basically picking up a farming tool. And that's not what's happening. It's really the reverse. Read Joel, the 3rd chapter. "And their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation." Are not those people over there literally going to war with one another, bombing each other, shooting missiles and drones strikes on each other? It says, "Neither shall they learn war anymore." So what's going on today is not a fulfillment of Isaiah 2. It says, "O house of Jacob, come ye, and let us walk in the light of the Lord." So we're still waiting for the true Israelites to go over there back to that land, which will be via the deliverance out of Babylon the Great. The elect of Israel will come out of Babylon the Great, and then will be brought back to the land of Israel by Yahushua, the Messiah, which is the so-called black man. So that land over there right now, pursuing to Luke 21:24, is being trodden down by the Gentiles. But that time is almost fulfilled. That time is almost up. So when you go back and you listen to this article and you listen to this information, they had to invent this land and then invent the language in order to get our identity. So it says Okay, hold on. Let me read this. Right. So it says the Hebrew language can live only if we revive the nation and return it to the fatherland, he wrote. But Ben Yehuda was also a humanist who envisioned the revival of modern Hebrew on the shoulders of classical Arabic. Arabic is the language that he got modern Hebrew from. To revive Hebrew, he reasoned, quote, I have turned her sister Arabic following the deeds of our ancient scholars, end quote. So this is what he said. So Apostle Har is right. Apostle Tar is right. Okay? His method resting on a brilliant logic of acculturation, which served more like a rhetorical device than a historical fact. He claimed that Arabic roots had been borrowed from ancient Hebrew, and it did. The people of the Arab world goes back to the line of Ishmael. It says, he claimed that Arabic roots had been borrowed from ancient Hebrew and hence must be reclaimed and resurrected into a modern national language. In Ben Yehuda's own words, the roots of Arabic were once a part of the Hebrew language, lost, and now we have found them again. So there you have it. Okay? Now, when you go into the scriptures, okay? Let's see here. When you look up Arabia, let's look up Arabia in the scriptures. Let's get this. 2 Chronicles 9 and 14. I read 13. Right. Solomon's wealth and power. Solomon, the wisest king of Israel, which ruled over all the nations at that time. All right, verse 13. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in one year was 636 talents of gold. That's a lot of gold. Solomon was a multi-millionaire, if not a billionaire at that time. Beside that which chapmen and merchants brought, and all the kings of Arabia and governors of the country brought gold and silver to Solomon. Why did they bring gold and silver to Solomon? All these merchants? Because they were tribute to Solomon. The Israelites ruled over all the nations, just like the Israelites in the kingdom will rule all the nations. And Solomon is Yahushua, reincarnated. Okay? Solomon was reincarnated as Yahushua, and he's coming back again to rule over his kingdom with the Israelites over all the nations. So now what I want to do is I want to get the word Arabia, okay? The word Arabia over here on the left, which is what? The Hebrew word Arab, all right, which is what? Arab, the Arabs, Arabia, Arab, Arab, which it should mean mixed. Okay, let me see. The steppe dwellers, the people inhabiting the country east and south of Canaan, the nomadic desert, the Bedouins, Arabians, right, the Arabs. Arabia, a country east of Palestine, Arabia. Okay. Okay, so let's look up the root word, Irab. Oh, look at that. To become evening, to grow dark. To grow dark, Irab. To be darkened. Let's see here. There's a more primitive, there's another word, Irab, another root word. Irab. to pledge, exchange, mortgage. I rob to fellowship. I rob to braid, to intermix. Right. To intermix. And that's what those people did over there. They intermixed those different tribes, those desert tribes, those Arabian desert tribes. They all mixed and mingled themselves together. But they're the sons of Ishmael. Okay? The sons of Ishmael ruled over that land, in that desert land. So they're all mingled together. You got the people, you got the Assyrians, you got the Syrians, you got Ishmael, different, as I said, nomadic tribes. Okay, so those are the Arabs. Okay, now I have this other article here. Let's see here. I don't need this anymore. That was the last video. So here we go. So this is from journals.pen, Angelica Adamczyk, University of Warsaw, Poland. So this is out of Poland. So it says foreign influences on modern Hebrew. Okay. So check this out. It says nowadays Hebrew is the main official language spoken in Israel, beside Arabic and English. And lingua franca, okay, here, that word again, lingua franca, of Jews living in the diaspora. Let's see what lingua franca is. If it'll let me look it up. Sometimes it will. Let's copy. Okay, let's look up lingua franca. Meaning. Lingua franca meaning. A language that is adopted as a common language between speakers whose native languages are different. So lingua franca. The lingua franca of that land is the modern day Hebrew. Okay. So it's what they speak. Like, for example, English would be the lingua franca of America. Most people speak English, but you have people that speak Spanish, French, German, Jamaican patois. They speak Creole. They speak different languages here in America. Okay. But English is the official language. So let me keep reading this. It says, it has undergone some significant changes and has been exposed to influences from other languages throughout all the stages of its development. Since the biblical times, through the Babylonian exile, the Middle Ages, the Aksala period, its revival in the 19th century, to the modern times. And when you go back to the times of Babylon and in the scriptures, Hebrew, which that's the language that the Israelites spoke back then, but you also had the change in Hebrew writing. All right, it's where you get the modern block writing, the modern square Hebrew writing. Okay, let's look this up. Hebrew alphabet. Right, so this is where you get that. It goes back to the Masoretic text. Well, the Masoretic text, that's the vowel points, but the block Hebrew language goes back to when Israel was put in captivity. Okay, during the different captivities in Assyria and Babylon, you got the Assyrian Hebrew. Okay, matter of fact, let me look that up. The Assyrian Hebrew alphabet. Here you go. Right, the modern Assyrian Hebrew. So that's what changed. Right, but certain words, like they put words to the months. I believe Nisan, the month of Nisan. was added because the Israelites, we never named our months or days, okay? We always just numbered, the first month, second month, third day, fourth day, fifth day. The seventh day of the week is the Shabbat. Shabbat wasn't necessarily the name of the day, because the word Shabbat just means rest. But the seventh day was the rest day. Okay, it was a day separated to worship the Heavenly Father. But the rest of the days of the week were just the first day, second day, third day, till you got to the Shabbat, which is the seventh day. Okay. So I just wanted to show that things did change. So you did have the Assyrian Hebrew, and then here you had the different Hebrew languages. And then you look on the far right, you got the ancient Greek, which I did a lesson years ago. The ancient Greek is another Hebrew dialect, and the characters of the Greek go back to the Hebrews. You can see here on the far right, you have the ancient Hebrew and the Phoenician, which is also what they call the Canaanite Hebrew. And then you see the Syriac, the Samaritan, and then you see the Arabic. So you have the different Hebrew. Then on the far left, you got the Assyrian or the modern Hebrew, the so-called block Hebrew languages. And that's just the written language. But even the spoken language, the dialects was different amongst the different people of that land. Okay? So let's read some more of this. It says, despite not being used for everyday conversation for more than 2,000 years, Hebrew kept developing in literature, mostly liturgical, due to its constant contact with numerous languages that were spoken, the Aramaic, Arabic, Ladino, Yiddish, and others. So there were different people speaking different languages, although they were in that land. Nowadays, it is developing dynamically, and as some authors claim, is losing its Semitic nature. Although the grammar, which those people over there are Shemites, but this is why, the prophecy says that the Lord is going to turn to the people a pure language, which is the Israelites. We're being turned to a pure language, what we call the Lashawan Kodash, hearing its truth amongst the One West Hebrew Israelite groups. Okay? It says, although the grammar is still based mainly on ancient Hebrew, numerous foreign lexical, syntactical, and phonological influences, the different dialects, because the languages were scattered at the Tower of Babel, so you got different people people were basically speaking Hebrew, but the dialect, certain words and things changed over the millennia. Okay? Although the grammar is still based mainly on ancient Hebrew, numerous foreign lexical, syntactical, and phonological influences may easily be observed in modern Hebrew. This paper is an attempt to explain the reason for such diversity of influences in Hebrew, with special focus on Israeli Hebrew. Some examples of foreign components in the colloquial language will be presented, mostly of Yiddish, Russian, and Arabic origin. Okay? So the Hebrew today is not the 100% true Hebrew. Let me get a precept. Let's go to Zephaniah, that's chapter 1. Let me see, Zephaniah. Oh no, hold on. I'm sorry. Yeah, Zephaniah 3 and 9. It says, for then will I turn to the people a pure language. So the language is not pure right now because it's of a different, there's different linguistic influences in the Hebrew that's being spoken over there today. Matter of fact, let me read this, verse 8. Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon them mine indignation. Because all those nations over there in the land of Israel, those are the Gentiles, right? I read Luke 21:24. Luke 21:24 said that Jerusalem will be trodden down of the Gentiles. Okay? So that nation, those nations that are being gathered are not the true Israelites over there. Even though they say they are the people of Israel, they are at war. And the prophecy says in Isaiah 2 that once they get back that land, they wouldn't learn war anymore. And they're clearly not just learning war, they're starting wars. So what does that tell you? That's why when we go into these scriptures and we preach this gospel and our doctrine, these Christians cannot deal with the Israelites because they don't understand prophecy. We go into the prophecies. We understand prophecies. If you want Christians to leave you alone, you want them to back down when it comes to these scriptures, go into prophecy and they're not going to know nothing. So it says, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. That's when the nuclear destruction will destroy that land, the state of Israel, and as well as America. But the state of Israel will be rebuilt in glory when the true Israelites return. Now here's the point, verse 9. For then will I turn to the people a pure language, which is what? That is the Hebrew tongue, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent. The people in the state of Israel don't even call on the name of the Lord. They say Hashem. Okay? And when they write it, they might put, if they're going to write in English, they'll put G-D, capital G-D, but they'll never invoke the name of the Lord because, of course, they say that you're not supposed to use the name of the Lord in vain. But truly that's because the scripture says that the name of Yahweh is dreadful among the heathen. Those are heathen in that land. They don't have the true name of the Lord. Okay? They know it, they hear us say it, but they don't but they don't believe in that name because that's not their true God. But the point here is that a pure language will be returned to the Israelites. Well, that language is now being turned to the Hebrew Israelites via the different Hebrew Israelite teachers out of One West, mainly GMS, and others too. Like I saw a good video. It was ISUPK here in Atlanta, but they go into the Hebrew. Okay, they were teaching the Hebrew, so that's good. So the language, the Lashon Kodash, is being taught, but it's being taught to so-called Black Hispanics and Native Americans, the true Israelites. So going back here in this article, I mainly made the point this is a lot of good information. A lot of good information. So let me read this, because most of this I already read. All right, I read in the previous page. So it says, the revival of the Hebrew language is strongly connected with the aspirations of the Jewish people to establish their own state. The Jewish state was Theodore Herzl's idea and ambition. So it had nothing to do with prophecy. It had nothing with because does not the scriptures say that the Messiah will come and deliver the people back to that land? But they took boats and airplanes and ships over there. Mainly boats, airplanes, trains. So, so the Messiah didn't return the people to that land over there. So who are those people in that land? Because prophecy is the main vehicle behind the land of Israel being established as a kingdom again with his people. So those would have to be the Gentiles. But listen to this, because it says that they had to create this place. In a manifesto, the Jewish state, he describes the new Jewish land as a multi-language place. They were supposed to speak all the languages that they used in their previous countries, besides Yiddish and Hebrew. Yiddish was thought to be the language of the diaspora, and Hebrew seemed useless to the author due to lack of vocabulary needed for everyday communication. So it says in 1881, Eliezer ben Yehuda, 1858 to 1922, came to Palestine, and since then, the renewed use of Hebrew as spoken language of the whole community has been dated. Hebrew was spoken in Palestine mainly by the Jews. However, the language was quite poor and simple. In fact, it was used as a pidgin. Yeah, it was just a broken language. Okay, it wasn't a full how do you say it? Fluent language at that time. It says Ben Yehuda was able to converse in Hebrew with the Jews he met. The main problem, listen to this, the main problem in implementing Hebrew in everyday life was lack of vocabulary. Many words needed for everyday life simply did not exist. Remember, the majority of what we know about the Hebrew language comes out of the Bible. The Bible is an ancient text. Okay? It says train. Right, train. Okay, for example, train. There's no ancient Hebrew word for train because trains didn't exist back then. Okay? The Hebrew equivalent for train is barazal sawas. Barazal sawas, which translates to iron horse. All right, because it's made of iron, but like a horse, that like they use horses to travel. So it's an iron horse. Okay. They didn't have cars back then, but they did have chariots. So a chariot, a wheeled vehicle to take people back and forth to travel, would be rakab. Okay, or marakab. I believe it's rakab. But they didn't have cars back then. Okay? So it says train, bomb. Oh, bomb. See, this is why when we tell you that the destruction will come via missiles or bombs, it's not gonna say missile in the scripture when you read it in the Bible. It's not going to be that plain because those words didn't exist. But they'll say things like fire from heaven. When they say fire heaven, that's what, a missile, a bomb. Okay? So it says bomb, bicycle, orchestra, exercise, clock, gun. They didn't have guns back then. But what they did have was swords. So the sword can eliminate people, unalive you, but now a gun. And we always say that the modern day sword is the gun. Sock, electricity, newspaper, watch, kitchen, and others. The language was not sufficient to talk about technologies. This is why when we tell you that the MOTB is a microchip, is an implant, it's not going to say. See, they try to use that argument, saying the Bible don't say there's a chip in there. Of course it doesn't. The word chip didn't exist during the time of the Apostle John. in the 1st century AD. It didn't exist in the Hebrew. Technology as we know it did not exist back then. So they had to use those modern terms for their time. Those ancient terms that they had, that was their modern wordage. So they explained what they saw with their own vocabulary. They had to use their current vocabulary of the ancient times, right? Of their times, or what they call the vernacular of their time, to explain future events. One of them would be the MOTB, the mark of the beast, which is a biometric implant, which there's no word for that. Another one would be a missile or bomb. There's no word for that. So they had to use their vernacular back then. So this is why you got to be of a keen mind. You got to be a studied mind, and you have to really get spiritually intimate with these scriptures and understand it. If you can't just use the Bible, you got to use these extra sources to back up what the scriptures are saying to get a better understanding, because there's a reason why things are the way they are. Okay? You just can't explain everything with the Bible itself and a Bible dictionary. You got to go deeper. You got to go into articles. You got to look things up. Now what we're doing is we're going into we're using AI. Here it is. Esau set up AI to bring about his agenda, his new world order, and to police the people eventually. But we're using AI through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai to back up the truth. Okay, to prove what we're saying. So everything is working for this truth. Okay? So it says the language was not sufficient to talk about technologies. Therefore, finding Hebrew words to denote all objects and ideas of at least normal life was an urgent necessity. Right. So when you go into the Hebrew English Hebrew dictionary, which is by Ben Yehuda, you're going to see words like for a computer. There's no ancient Hebrew word for a computer. So he had to borrow from this language, borrow from that, take certain meanings of this word, combine it together. Like I mentioned, the word for train, barzal sawas, is iron horse. It's like a compound Hebrew word for what a train is. Okay? It says, in those times, many Palestine inhabitants refused to speak Hebrew at home, although they were using the language outside home. So here it says Arabic. These two languages, Hebrew and Arabic, have been in contact since the Middle Ages. Then numerous philosophic works of Rambam, Saadia Gaon, and others were written in Judeo-Arabic. In this period, some Arabic words were borrowed and are still used in modern Hebrew. So on the left, you see the Hebrew word, and then you have it how it's pronounced, and then you have what it means. So you have lachan, which means tune or melody. Okay? You have the Hebrew word marakaz. Here they have merkaz, and it means center. And then you have awapak. Here they have ofek, and it means horizon or perspective. So it says, from the beginning of Zionism, many Arabic words were incorporated into Hebrew, especially into the slang. Eleazar ben Yehuda derived from Arabic while looking for new words. He used Arabic words or stems to create new words. Also, Zionists use Arabic words in everyday language as a part of the process of becoming part of the land of Israel. So they had to revive the language, borrow from different dialects, borrow from Arabic, borrow from it said Russian, other languages. They had to make up words, and then they had, because they had to. If they're going to say that they're the people in that land, they're going to take the land from the Arabs, and they got to prove that they're those people. So they needed a language first, because a language is a part of a culture. That's why today, and this truth, Yahweh Shai Shai has given us Israelites here of One West Israelites, and here at GMS, ISUPK, IUIC, they don't do the Hebrew. They come against the Hebrew. But the Bishop Nathaniel has roots in teaching the Hebrew and the names of the Lord. Right? We have the Lashawan Kodash. Why? Because it's our heritage. You need the language to prove your heritage. As a part of your heritage. It's a part of it. So that's what those small hats did. But we're getting it back in truth. Okay, so this is Zephaniah 3 and 9. For then will I turn to the people of pure language, that's the Lashawan Kodash, the holy tongue, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord, the Hebrew name of the Heavenly Father, Jehovah. The name of the Son is Yahweh Shai. To serve him with one consent. So we have the true language. We have the Hebrew language. All right. But those people over there in the state of Israel, they understood that too, right? Language is culture. New perspectives on Hebrew. Van Leer, Jerusalem Institute. I'm just reading the bibliography down here, or the references down here. So there you go. So they got the Hebrew language, the modern Hebrew, by Yitzhak Perlman or Eleazar ben Yehuda, same person. He borrowed from the Arabic language and came up with new words, and that's how they speak it today, along with the mixture of other languages. But with that, I hope this lesson was edifying. All praises goes to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Kodash. Shalom. And keep studying, keep learning. Okay, our culture. Let me see. Yeah, that's it. Hey, so with that, shalom.